How's it going, everyone? Austin Honecker here. I just wanted to come on here for a while and give him a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite from 3 nights ago, which was November 30th, 2022. I gotta say, it was awesome from start to finish. For the matches, match 1, it was Bryan Danielson versus Dax Harwood. That was a great match. But the ending to it, Bryan Danielson went over with the LaBelle Lock. Match 2, it was Samoa Joe versus AR Fox for the AEW TNT title. That was a great match. But the ending to it, Samoa Joe went over and retained the AEW TNT title with the Muscle Buster. Now, after the match, Samoa Joe got on the microphone and cut a promo talking about how AEW's a new generation of champions, with Samoa Joe being the face of television and everything. And then Wardlow popped up on the Titantron and was talking about how Samoa Joe could come up with better names than what he has, especially with the Ward Joe thing, and talked about how Samoa Joe is not going to last as AEW TNT champion and everything, because this is not Samoa Joe's world, it's Wardlow's world and everything. So Wardlow on the Titantron disappeared and Samoa Joe was looking on and everything. That was cool. That was after the match, by the way. Match 3, it was Ricky Starks versus Ari Davari. That was a squash match. But the ending to it, Ricky Starks went over with the Rochambeau. Now, before the match, as Ari Davari was already out in the ring, Ricky Starks came out to the ring, and after Ricky Starks came out to the ring, the Firm, which are Matt Hardy, Ethan Page, and Stokely Hathaway, came out, and Stokely Hathaway was getting ready to talk shit towards Ricky Starks, but Matt Hardy interrupted and was doing his delete gesture, and Stokely Hathaway told Matt Hardy to go backstage. Matt Hardy wouldn't listen, and then Stokely Hathaway handed Ethan Page the microphone, and Ethan Page got on the microphone and told Matt Hardy to get backstage and everything, and Ethan Page talked about how Matt Hardy was going to help him win the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal next week and everything, and Ethan Page told Matt Hardy to go backstage and everything, so Matt Hardy went backstage, and then Ethan Page was talking shit towards Ricky Starks and was talking about how he was going to win the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal, and talking about how he was going to beat MJF's ass and win the AEW title and everything, and everything. That was cool. And that was before the match, by the way. Match 4, it was Willow Nightingale versus Anna Jay. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Willow Nightingale went over with the Dr. Bomb. Now, after the match, Ruby Soho came out and attacked Ty Mello and beat the shit out of her, and Anna Jay tried to intervene, but Ruby Soho attacked Anna Jay and laid her out, and then Ruby Soho continued to beat the shit out of Ty Mello and laid her out with the Destination Unknown and everything, and Ruby Soho stood tall and everything. That was cool. That was after the match, by the way. And match 5, which was the main event, it was the Elite, which are Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson, versus the Death Triangle, which are Pac, Rey Fenix, and Penta El Cerro Miedo, in match 3 of the AEW Trios titles Best of 7 series. That was a great match, but the ending to it, the Elite went over because Matt Jackson pinned Pac with a roll-up. Now, before the match, as the Elite came out and the Death Triangle came out, a brawl between the Elite and the Death Triangle occurred, and the Elite and the Death Triangle were beating the shit out of each other before the match started. That was cool. That was before the match, by the way, and after the match, as the Elite, which are Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Brandon Cutler, MT Nakazawa, and Don Callis, were celebrating the Elite's victory, Kenny Omega got on the microphone and talked about how the sweeper was coming back and how they were going to sweep everything out of AEW and everything. And Kenny Omega done his goodbye and goodnight gesture, catchphrase, and Kenny Omega told the production truck to hit the music. So the Elite's theme song, Carry On My Wayward Son by Kansas, played and everything, while the Death Triangle, which are Pac, Rey Fenix, Penta El Zero Miedo, and Alex Abrahantes, were looking on and everything. That was cool. That was after the match, by the way. And that was match 5 and the main event, by the way. Okay. Now, besides the matches, John Moxley came out and cut a promo talking about how he grew up 90 miles away from Indianapolis, Indiana. Talked about how he's traveled to Indianapolis, Indiana for wrestling numerous times, and talked about how AEW hasn't changed since day one, and how he's the face of AEW, and how he's carried AEW on his back during the pandemic and everything, and talked about how nobody can outdo him in anything: sweat, blood, fighting, wrestling, anything. And John Moxley talked about how he was the greatest wrestler of all time and everything, and talked about how nobody on the AEW roster or anybody in the building had the balls to confront him and everything. So, as John Moxley was talking shit, Hangman Page came out to the ring, and John Moxley was talking shit towards Hangman Page, saying, "Are you sure you want to do this, dude? Because remember what you know what happened last time, or if you remember." So John Moxley, as he was talking shit, Hangman Page punched John Moxley in the face, and then a brawl between John Moxley and Hangman Page occurred, and John Moxley and Hangman Page were beating the shit out of each other, and so all the referees and the security guards had to come out and break it up and everything. That was cool. Tony Schiavone interviewed Ricky Starks. Well, Tony Schiavone brought up about Ricky Starks being the number one contender for the AEW title and will be facing MJF in 2 weeks at AEW Dynamite special event Winter is Coming for the AEW title and everything. And then Ricky Starks was talking about how there was going to be a Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal and everything, and Ricky Starks talked about how he was entering himself in the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal, and talked about how he was going to go in and win because he's not called Absolute for anything, because he is Absolute Ricky Starks, and talked about how he was going to beat MJF and become the AEW champion and everything. That was cool. John Moxley was getting ready to be... The security guards were getting ready to escort Hangman Page out of the building, and as that was going on, John Moxley appeared, and a brawl between John Moxley and Hangman Page occurred again, and John Moxley and Hangman Page were beating the shit out of each other again, while the referees and the security guards had to break it up and everything again. That was cool. Renee Paquette interviewed the Jericho Appreciation Society, which are Jake Hager, Daniel Garcia, Matt Menard, and Angelo Parker, and the Blackpool Combat Club, which are Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. Well, Renee Paquette brought up about the Jericho Appreciation Society and the Blackpool Combat Club requesting interview time with each other and agreed to no physicality and everything, and Renee Paquette was asking Claudio Castagnoli about being the Ring of Honor World Champion and what it meant to him, and Claudio Castagnoli was getting ready to talk, but Matt Menard interrupted and talked about how Claudio Castagnoli was a sports entertainer and how he'd be a great fit for the Jericho Appreciation Society and everything. And then Claudio Castagnoli, then Jake Hager was, then Jake, and then Renee Paquette was getting pissed off because the Jericho Appreciation Society were interrupting the Blackpool Combat Club and everything. And Jake Hager was talking about how he loved his hat and talked about and got another hat and told Claudio Castagnoli that they could be a tag team again and everything. And Claudio Castagnoli got pissed, but before all that happened, Claudio Castagnoli was talking about how the Ring of Honor World title meant a lot to him because it was his favorite title, because it was his first major title and everything, and talked about how he wanted it back and everything. But after the interruptions happened, Claudio Castagnoli was talking about how he was getting tired of the sit-down interviews, the onstage interviews, and all the bullshit, because he came to AEW for one reason, and that is to be the champion and to showcase his talent and everything, and talked about how he was going to beat Chris Jericho at Ring of Honor's pay-per-view event Final Battle and become the Ring of Honor World Champion again and everything. And then Claudio Castagnoli walked off, and then Daniel Garcia was talking shit, talking about how he was proud to be a part of the Jericho Appreciation Society, and talked about how the Blackpool Combat Club was falling apart and everything. And Wheeler Yuta was getting pissed off and talked about how Daniel Garcia didn't know anything about the Blackpool Combat Club, and talked about how he was tired of the Jericho Appreciation Society, and talked about and was talking about how the only reason he's still dealing with them is because he wants one thing and one thing only, and that's the Ring of Honor Pure title. And Wheeler Yuta demanded a shot at the Ring of Honor Pure title at Ring of Honor's pay-per-view event Final Battle. And Wheeler Yuta was talking about how after that he wants this all to end. Daniel Garcia agreed to it and everything. That was cool. Powerhouse Hobbs cut a promo talking about how he's been walking the streets of Oakland, California, and talked about how he's been bullied and beat up throughout his childhood, and talked about how now he's going to be how he's going to be focusing on his own happiness and everything and everything in AEW and everything. That was cool. Taz broke down the technique of Hook escaping the Border City stretch from Lee Moriarty and locking in the Red Rum and everything. That was cool. William Regal came out and introduced MJF. So MJF came out and got on the microphone and was talking about how he's the new AEW champion and how Indianapolis, Indiana sucks, and talked about how he's going to be the AEW champion for a long time, and talked about how William Regal has been a great influence on him, and read the email that William Regal sent out to him. And MJF was talking about how he kind of respected the firm, but they brought the weakness out in him, and talked about how William Regal turned that around and everything. And MJF talked about how he was not going to defend the AEW title regularly and wasn't going to wrestle regularly and everything. And MJF had William Regal reveal the new AEW title. So William Regal revealed the new AEW title, and MJF talked about how it was called the Triple B, and how the regular AEW title reminded him of the former champions, and it made him gag like Indianapolis, Indiana does, and talked about how the former AEW champions were kind of talented in their own way. And then MJF talked about how the fans cheer on wannabe tough guys like Eddie Kingston and Ricky Starks and everything, and MJF was talking about how he was going to be the AEW champion, until the bidding war of 2024, and talked about how he wasn't going to work for Tony Khan anymore, that he was going to be working for he's possibly going to be working for his buddy Nick Khan, the co-CEO of WWE, and talked about how he was also going to possibly work for Triple H in WWE and everything, and talked about how he may not re-sign with AEW and not sign with WWE. He may go to Hollywood and everything. And then MJF was being sarcastic and thanking William Regal for everything he's done, and then MJF attacked William Regal from behind with the brass knuckles and laid him out, and MJF started talking shit to William Regal, and MJF left the ring and went backstage, and Bryan Danielson came out to tend to William Regal, and the EMTs came out to get William Regal on a stretcher, and Bryan Danielson went with the EMTs to put William Regal in the back of the ambulance truck. So Bryan Danielson got in the ambulance truck with William Regal, and the ambulance took William Regal to the hospital and everything. That was cool. Let me see. Yeah. Excuse me. Tony Schiavone interviewed Team DMD, which are Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Rebel, and Tony Schiavone brought up about Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter scoring a win in the tag team match last week and everything, and Britt Baker talked about how the Pittsburgh Steelers won against the Indianapolis Colts and everything, and Britt Baker talked about how Renee Paquette was going to be interviewing Saraya, having a sit-down interview on Friday on AEW Rampage and everything, and Jamie Hayter was saying, I have an idea, Tony. Next week on Dynamite, how about you have a sit-down interview with your AEW Women's Champion, Jamie Hayter? And Tony Schiavone was talking about how he was going to possibly do it, and Britt Baker said, no, Tony, you're going to do it. Tony Schiavone agreed and everything, and Britt Baker said, because yours truly, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and everything. That was cool. Jade Cargill and the Baddies, which are Red Velvet and Layla Gray, came out, and Jade Cargill got on the microphone talking about how she's the baddest bitch in AEW, and talked about how she's the best TBS Women's Champion, and talked about how she's the face of the women's division in AEW and everything. And Jade Cargill was talking about how she got rid of the trash that is Kiera Hogan last week, and talked about how Red Velvet and Layla Gray hung out with her last weekend, and Jade Cargill was pissed off about that, and Jade Cargill was talking about how she didn't need the Baddies' help and beat Nyla Rose and got the belt, got the TBS Women's title back on her own and everything, and Jade Cargill was talking about how Lil Bow Wow was a joke and everything, and so Lil Bow Wow appeared on the Titantron and said, Jade, baby, I'm not on tour right now, so and as you know, I'm all about money, so I'll see you real soon, baby. And so, as Lil Bow Wow disappeared from the Titantron, Jade Cargill and the Baddies, which are Red Velvet and Layla Gray, looked on and everything. That was cool. Tony Schiavone interviewed QT Marshall and Orange Cassidy. Well, Tony Schiavone brought up about QT Marshall and Orange Cassidy requesting to talk to each other and agreed to no physicality and everything. And QT Marshall was talking about how he wanted a shot at Orange Cassidy for the AEW All-Atlantic title on AEW Rampage Friday night, and Orange Cassidy agreed to it, and QT Marshall was saying, but it's not going to be an ordinary match, Orange. It's going to be a lumberjack match. And Orange Cassidy was saying, okay, lumberjack match. I like it. We're going to do it. See you then. So Orange Cassidy left, and QT Marshall was getting pissed off because he didn't get to talk and everything, and everything. That was cool. And Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, cut a promo, and Billy Gunn was acting like a drill sergeant and was asking the Acclaimed why they haven't had a match and everything, and the Acclaimed answered because they haven't found a new opponents yet, and Billy Gunn asked why they're not proving that they're the best tag team in AEW because they're the AEW tag team champions and everything, and the Acclaimed is talking about how they need another match to defend the AEW tag team titles and everything, and Billy Gunn was talking about how the Acclaimed need to find worthy opponents for the AEW tag team titles and everything, and the Acclaimed were saying, yes sir, daddy ass, and everything, and then Billy Gunn signaled for the gesture, scissor me daddy ass. So Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, done the scissor me gesture and everything. That was cool. Now, besides all that, Tony Schiavone, Taz, and Excalibur done commentary throughout the whole show. They done awesome as usual. The referees for the event were Rick Knox, Paul Turner, Bryce Remsburg, Stephon Smith, and Aubrey Edwards. Okay. Bryce Remsburg refereed the match between Bryan Danielson versus Dax Harwood. Paul Turner refereed the match between Samoa Joe versus AR Fox for the AEW TNT title. Stephon Smith refereed the match between Ricky Starks versus Ari Davari. Aubrey Edwards refereed the match between Willow Nightingale versus Anna Jay. And Rick Knox refereed the match between the Elite versus the Death Triangle in match 3 of the AEW Trios Titles Best of 7 series. All the referees done awesome as usual. Now, the match card that's been announced for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite Wednesday night, it's going to be a Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal to determine the number one contender to face either MJF or Ricky Starks for the AEW title. And the contestants in the match so far are Matt Hardy, Dalton Castle, Brian Cage, Jungle Boy, Ricky Starks, Ethan Page, and Shawn Dean. The Jericho Appreciation Society, which are Jake Hager and Daniel Garcia, versus the Blackpool Combat Club, which are Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. Those are the matches that have been announced so far. Now, besides the matches, Tony Schiavone will be having a sit-down interview with Jamie Hayter. So the match card for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite Wednesday night that's been announced so far looks like it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see it, and I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here for a while and give them a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite from 3 nights ago, which was November 30th, 2022. Like I said, it was awesome from start to finish. And with that being said, my name is Austin Honecker, and I will catch your ass down the road. Peace out.